Election 2020. Some people are excited. Some people are afraid. Some people are moving to Switzerland. I'm going to mention the two leading candidates for President of the United States by name. One thing before I do that, this is not a time to cheer, and this is not a time to boo. Agreed? Okay. Donald Trump. Some people support his policies and believe that he is the best candidate. Joe Biden. Some people support his policies and believe that he is the best candidate. Do you think the election this week would be easier if Jesus were one of the candidates? Oh, just to be clear, Jesus is not one of these two candidates. And just to be even more clear, Satan is not one of these two candidates. All right. Last week, we talked about Jesus and recognized that he was different. That Jesus is a different kind of candidate with a different kind of platform. That Jesus, he uses his power not to impose and not to force and not to get, but Jesus, he uses his power to sacrifice, to love, to serve, to give. Today, we're going to examine what the Bible has to say about this, government and religion, what the Bible has to tell us about the role of followers of Jesus and our relationship to the government. Probably the most renowned passage in the Bible on this issue is in Matthew 22. Jesus, he said these words. He said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." Okay, well, what does that mean? What is Caesar's and what is God's? And how about this? Who is Caesar? And is Caesar a Republican or is Caesar a Democrat? There are some people who are convinced that God is a Republican. And they will pull passages out of the Bible to support that belief. Let me give you an example. Psalm 7:11 says this: God is always right. God is always right. How clear is that? He's on the right side of the political spectrum. Well, if you need more, there's also things like this. Mark 2:15. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many publicans and sinners were eating with him. I say, publicans! Jesus ate with publicans. He must be a Republican. Well, there are other people who are convinced, well, God is a Democrat, and they'll find passages in the Bible and pull those out to support those beliefs, like this. Matthew 15:13. Great crowds came to him, bringing the lame, the blind, the crippled, the mute, and many others, and laid them at his feet, and he healed them. They say, look, health care for everyone, and it's free. Or how about all those times when Jesus, he just gave food away? After feeding the 4,000 people with no charge, we read this, Matthew 15:37, they all ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. Left. God must be on the left. God must be a Democrat. It's in there. So, have I managed to offend everybody yet? I'm trying to be a bipartisan offender here. Here's what I do hope that you get in this. I hope that you get that it is very possible to pull passages out of the Bible, out of their context, out of what God really intended them to mean and to say, to pull passages out of the Bible to support just about any agenda. And I share this with you to say, be careful. Don't let the Bible be manipulated in ways it's not intended to be. There are followers of Jesus on both sides of the aisle who believe that the Bible supports their view. And the Bible does have social and moral and political implications. Some of those can be fulfilled through more than one policy or more than one political platform. Others, maybe not as much. We don't believe in telling people how to vote or which party to support. So Republicans and Democrats, welcome here. Donald Trump supporters, Joe Biden supporters, welcome here. Okay? All right, now let's move into this. Let's explore a few of the views of God and government that seem to miss God's intent. So here's the first one. We'll get at it this way. The first one is when people will say, well, government bad and religion is good. Say anything that has to do with the government is just, well, evil. Well, that's not what we read in the Bible. Romans 13 verse 1 says this, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God." Our government, it may not be perfect, but it has been established by God. If we were to just dump government and let anarchy reign, what would protect us from somebody robbing us? What would protect someone from burning your house down? Who would bring justice? See, God designed government to limit evil and to protect people. Paul continues, verse 3, "Do you want to be free from fear of the one in authority? Then do what is right, and you will be commended. For the one in authority is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. For rulers do not bear the sword for no reason. They are God's servants, agents of wrath to bring punishment on the wrongdoer." You know, it's really easy to take shots at politicians. Want an example? I'll give you one. Take a look at this, and the caption on this says, "And then I told them that we lower their taxes." Easy to take shots at politicians. They're easy targets, but it's not fair to stereotype them all. There are some very servant-hearted politicians who could make more money in other occupations, but they're doing what they're doing because they want to help people. Government, it was established by God. It's a good thing to be involved politically. If you've run for office, if you've held an office, if you've engaged in public service, if you've volunteered for a campaign, well, thank you. Thank you. This government is evil. Well, that is a biblically incorrect way of viewing the government. And that's not the only one. So is this. If we say government equals religion, we say, well, government will impose religion. There are some who believe that, well, the role of the government, we want the government to force people to adhere to the tenets of our faith. And there are times that might seem tempting, but just look at history. Those are some of the darkest moments in the history of this world. Example, have you heard of Bloody Mary? I'm not talking about the drink. I'm talking about the Queen of England. How'd she get that name? How'd she get that reputation? Well, here's what she did. Years ago, the Queen of England, Bloody Mary, she made Catholicism the only legal religion in England. She had 300 Protestant followers of Jesus burned at the stake just for being Protestant. For the next 100 years or so, what was going on in Europe? Religious bloodshed. So some dudes wearing funny hats got in a boat, sailed across the ocean to be freed from that kind of thing. It's the Mayflower, right? That's the origin of our nation. There are some nations that are still doing this kind of thing, government-imposed religion, still happening today. Think Iran. Think Afghanistan. But this kind of thing, you don't see it in places that are predominantly Christian. Well, why? Because of Jesus. Jesus refused to force people to follow him. John 6, verse 15. Look what he did. Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. Jesus was very clear. Jesus gives freedom. Jesus invites. Jesus lets people decide. So this, government-imposed religion, that's wrong view number 2. Well, there's another. Let's look at this one. If we'd flip it and say, well, government prohibits religion. This is the view that would say, well, anything that has to do with God or spirituality or religion, well, it should be banned from anything that has to do with politics or the government. This is the kind of view that would say, it's okay, you can believe whatever it is that you want to believe, but keep your mouth shut or you're going to violate my constitutional rights. Well, here's one of the big problems with this view. The Constitution of the United States. Here, the First Amendment says this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, which means no government-imposed religion. The government can't force people to believe in or to adhere to any specific religion. Well, the First Amendment continues. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. The United States Constitution prohibits the government from passing laws that prevent us from following our religious beliefs. We have constitutional protection to live out our faith. I don't want to oversimplify this one. Okay, lots of cases go into our court system to determine the line between freedom of religion and freedom from religion. That one's complicated. But the founders of our nation, they have recognized that there is indeed a vital place for religion. John Adams, he put it this way. He said, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. In other words, he's saying if there is not a moral or spiritual conscience among the people, this system of government, it will fail. And given, where our culture and its trajectory is today, those words, those are a little scary. George Washington said something along the same lines. I'll quote him. George Washington said this: of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. It is impossible to rightly govern the world without God. It is impossible to rightly govern the world without God. Say, well, that's wrong view number 3. Well, how about the next one? And that one would be this. If we say government is above or government is greater than religion. I'll give you an example of this one. A popular one would be, well, today it's called the social gospel movement. And this is that movement that says, well, we want to help people. That's a good thing. But don't tell anybody about Jesus. See, we want to bless people. We want to help the poor. We want to help people who are impoverished. I mean, that's a popular thing to do. Everybody's got a cause nowadays. But it would also say, leave Jesus out of it because Jesus offends people. Well, Jesus has something to say to us about this view. Hear what Jesus said. These are the words of Jesus after he was raised from the dead. Matthew 28, verse 18. Then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. Jesus, point blank, calls us to help people and tell them about him. Both. Let me give you an example of that. We take both of those into consideration when we think about mission, when we think about our role in this world. Here's an example of it. Operation Christmas Child. We're doing this right now. What we're doing is we're partnering with churches around the world, and we're getting these boxes, and we're filling them up with toys. The toys are for kids. And then these boxes are going to be shipped throughout the entire world, mostly to places where kids that just don't have very much, they're going to get a box filled with toys, and they're going to be thrilled. Now, maybe you know that part, but did you know that that's not the only thing that happens with Operation Christmas Child? What else that happens is this. When these kids get these boxes, their friends are there, their families brought them there. When they're distributed, a local leader is going to tell everyone about Jesus. And you're going to do that in an interesting and an engaging way, and then offer a 12-week follow-up for how to grow and how to learn more about God and the Bible. You see that? It's serving people, it's helping people, and telling them about Jesus, both. Well, here's the last one. It would be if we would just flip this the other way. And we say, well, religion over and above government. This is the view that says, well, government is flawed. What we really need to do is just tell people about Jesus and ignore anything that has to do with government or with politics. We should just stay out of all that stuff. Well, the error with this particular view is this is a reductionist view of the gospel. Reductionist view of the gospel here. This asserts, well, Jesus came so that we could someday leave and then we could be with him forever in heaven. Well, that's partially true. He did that, but he also does a whole lot more. God, he created this world, and he still cares about this world. And he hasn't taken us to heaven yet. He leaves us here because he calls on us, his followers, to invest in a whole bunch of ways to make this world a better place. And those ways include government, and they include politics. Followers of Jesus throughout history, you can just look through history and see it's the followers of Jesus that have done great and amazing things working through governments. Example, it was the followers of Jesus in the Roman government who passed legislation that banned child abandonment. It was the followers of Jesus that did that. It was the followers of Jesus in the Roman government that outlawed human sacrifice, that outlawed pedophilia. In the 1830s, most of the people supporting the abolition of slavery, well, were clergy and church members. For centuries, prison systems. I mean, people, they were deplorable conditions. People didn't care about what conditions were like in prisons. What changed that? Well, it was the followers of Jesus. There was a woman by the name of Dorothea Dix, and she led prison reform years ago, and one of the things she brought into prison reform was this: education. She said everybody who's in prison deserves to be educated because everyone is valued and loved by God. See what we've been doing through history? Followers of Jesus can work with and we can work in and we can work through the government to accomplish great good, systemic good. Let's personalize this. So we've got God and religion, and we've got the government. I want you to meet someone. Meet Emma. And Emma, at age 2, she was abandoned by her father. At age 5, she was physically abused by her mother. At age 10, she was sexually abused by her brother. At age 13, she's addicted to meth. So, what's it going to take to change the trajectory of her life? If we elect the right person on Tuesday, then he can pass new laws to help someone like this. Will that do it? Will new laws, will better policies end abuse? Will new laws, will better policies end all the violence? Will new laws, will better policies end all the addictions? Well, we know the answer to that. Well, no, they won't. The reality is law and government can only do so much. There's good in that, there's value in it, but it's not everything. The government can pass domestic violence laws, but they cannot force a husband to love his wife. The government can seek out and eradicate terrorist cells, but they cannot cure the hate. It can ban theft but not envy. It can ban murder but not discontent. It can ban rape but not lust. Law innately has limitations. The government can enforce policy, and the government can pass legislation, and the government can control behavior, and there's some value in that, and there's some upside to that that's important, but understand this, it cannot change the human heart. Can't do that. Law doesn't do that. What does that? Law, understand. Law, goodness cannot be imposed externally. Goodness cannot be imposed externally. So what's it going to take? What's Emma's hope? What or who can change her life? Here's what we, the followers of Jesus, believe. 1 Peter 1 verse 3. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In His great mercy, He has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Only the power and only the love of the resurrected Jesus can restore hope. Only the power and the love of the resurrected Jesus can heal the wounds that are so deep inside. Only the power of the resurrected Jesus can overcome sin, can remove shame, can bring lasting peace and joy and wholeness. And do you know who it is that has that platform? You do. And I do. We do. That's the platform. That's the platform of the church. The followers of Jesus have a very important, essential role in this world. To love, to care, to help, and to point people to the one who saves. And I wonder, how are you doing at that job? Tuesday's coming. And we have this amazing opportunity of representative government. Hundreds of thousands of people have sacrificed their lives so that we have the opportunity to vote. Take that seriously. Don't just vote for who your friends are voting for. Don't just vote who the person you've heard of the most. Research. Get the facts and discover where they stand on the issues. Discover where they stand on various things that may be of importance to you, because the teachings of Jesus, well, they do have moral and social and political and ethical implications. So do your homework, vote your convictions, and vote your values. There's a lot of fear. And there's a lot of anxiety right now. A lot of us are all knotted up inside. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do. I'm going to invite you right now, whether you're at home, whether you're in this room, just to take a big, deep breath. And let me tell you something. God has been working through good leaders, and God has been working through bad leaders for a very long time. Regardless of who wins or who loses on Tuesday, don't freak out. God's got this. God's not nervous about November 3. God's not in heaven on the edge of his seat, sweating bullets, thinking, oh no, I can't believe it. I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that person. What am I going to do? What's going to happen now? No. Here's what we believe. Let me close us with this. Psalm 24, verse 1 says, "The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." Do you believe that? Do you really? Regardless of who wins on Tuesday? If you believe that, then I'm going to invite you to do this. I'm going to invite you to declare your faith and to read Psalm 24, verse 1 with me. Join me. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. One more time. The earth is the Lord's, and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. No matter who holds office, our God still holds the world. Let's put our faith, let's put our hope, let's put our confidence in Him.